almost forget that and kind of look at what is the brand, what does it stand for, why should someone care, why should people resonate with it?
Whether you have a physical product or you have a service and you're trying to build your brand, how can you attach yourself to people that have bigger authority?
How do you make a mark right now, like in the noisy marketing world that we live in, right?
There was two things. It's like, is this going to make my friends laugh? And is it going to break the internet today?
And as we're driving in, there's like these guys like with like legit like long weapons just standing at the entrance of the barrio. And we're like, are you sure? Like, this is crazy. What are some fun campaigns that you've done like this year, or maybe you have in the books? Maybe we can inspire some people with some cool ideas of what you guys are doing.
So yeah, there's been
What is my purpose? Where am I going? Is this your purpose? It's more like a journey.
I can waterboard you.
everything is the comparison. It's cool to get ideas, but getting bogged down in like what competitors are doing is just...
We've got some
Hey, I'm Luis.
And this is Luis.
And welcome to the Content is Profit podcast.
In here, you're going to get the insights, accountability, and drive to create consistently and increase revenue.
You'll hear from top entrepreneurs, creators, and anything and everything you need to know about content. All this while having a good time.
The goal of this podcast is simple: entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit. Let's go.
Ding, 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 ding.
Good job.
I got it this time.
I'm pumped. I'm so pumped.
I know.
I might not see it,
and for
but
that,
I'm super pumped.
I know, and for that reason, well, we'll do this in just a second. I'm so stoked. One night I was like just scrolling LinkedIn and I was like curious about something. I'll tell the story when our guest kind of shows up. But I sent a DM and a very cold DM.
You slide into somebody's DM.
I slid into somebody's DM and this person immediately, it was so fast. I was like, what? And that's how you know that it's a content creator, is an awesome marketer network.
Maybe you caught him right when he was checking his DMs, you know?
Who knows?
Good timing. Talk about good timing. There you go. That's
But then we jumped in that famous 11-minute call, and he was actually walking through an awesome city. And then a couple months later, here we are. Let's go. And we talk about like success.
Success booking.
Success booking.
Good job. Good
so,
job.
You know, if you're listening and you want to know how to book people, just give me a call. Send me a DM.
Just slide in DMs.
For free. But Fonzie, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking on how to develop cults.
Whew. Cults?
Cults.
Ooh.
Maybe I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, you know? Cults. C-U-L-T-S.
I know. And some people might love them, some people might be not loving them.
But these are the good cults.
The good cults.
The good cults. The ones that you want to form around your brand.
The ones you want to create
right.
For the people and your companies. But anyways, I already told you how we met, and this person is an action sports podcaster. He's an event host and commentator. He has over 20 years of experience in media, events, travel, and the tourism industry. He is the Director of Cult Indoctrination in Europe for a very famous writer, which we'll put in just a second.
The curiosity. It's killing me.
Yes. He managed the lifestyle marketing for insert brand over here in UK and Europe, and he's also CEO and founder of festival platform called Rad Season, which I'm very excited to talk a little bit about that because that's like my entry into entrepreneurship.
I'm just gonna say this guy sounds like our next best friend. Just saying, dude.
Sounds good, guys. With that said, please welcome the one and only Oli. Oh, there we go. Oli Russell-Cowan. Let's go.
How you doing, guys?
We're pumped. We're pumped. As you can tell, we're very excited.
Why did I just do? Hey, Oli.
Firstly, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, Oli. By the way, we have a surprise for you. We saved the cheer for this.
There we go.
There we go. For those listening right now, we just opened a pair of Liquid Death, which is the water company that Oli manages and does amazing things.
Which Oli manages their cult.
Their
right?
cult, yes. Indoctrinates their cult. So, Oli, why don't you share a little bit like what is Liquid Death, right? Obviously, we're not drinking poison, right?
No, so I guess the high level answer to that would be, or like Liquid Death is it's a drinks and beverages company, essentially, which started off as water, and is now kind of morphed into soft drinks, and over in the States, iced teas as well, and we've got a different range of products.
Nice. I remember the first time I saw it. It was actually somebody's podcast. It was somebody pretty big, and they were drinking it, and I was like, "What is that can?" Literally, I was like, "What is that name?" I was like, "That looks cool." But immediately my mind went to a beer. I thought they were drinking beer. And I was like, oh, cool, I need to find this beer, right? And then when I finally saw it on a grocery store, I looked at it and I was like, oh, they had this beer. I'm going to try it. And when I went to grab it, I was like, wait, it's water. This is crazy. It's water. I was like, this is so cool. This is so different. And it really caught my attention. And then after that, it was kind of like, when you're looking for a new car that you start seeing it everywhere? It was kind of like that. I started seeing Liquid Death everywhere. Like, a lot of creators had it. They were just drinking it, right? And I was like, these guys are doing some good marketing out here. So I'm very excited to dive into this, but also Oli, I'm very excited to dive into your story because, man, you have created some cool stuff. You're an awesome dude, super active, like extreme sports. I feel like someday I might see you in the X Games, who knows, or maybe you were there. But I'm curious, how did you get started in this world for the events, and then building community and growing cults for this type of brands?
Yeah, so I guess diving back, I grew up in London, over in the UK, and I got into skateboarding pretty early on when I was like, I don't know, maybe like 11, 12, and sort of with that this is going way back. So this is like sort of like early 90s. It's sort of around that kind of punk rock era when that was super popular back in the day, and it just went hand in hand with skateboarding. Then I got obsessed with surfing, which kind of, I don't know, skating was getting a little bit painful. I was taking loads of slams, and I was like, I got I just couldn't hack it. So I was just like, all right, like maybe if I move to surfing, it's water, it's not going to hurt me as much when I'm stacking it. And just got hooked and obsessed with surfing, which got me, I guess my first role, I was working for a company which were doing all the media for magazines for when print was actually a thing. They all had, this company had their own titles, so it was everything in Europe in the UK for skateboarding, for surfing, for snowboarding. Wow. And I was like, oh, this is my place. These are my people. Right? This is kind of where I want to hang out, and I worked for them for a couple of years, and that kind of got me, I guess, into the action sports industry. And I mean, if you can believe it, I sort of started off selling DVDs. The company I was working with, they had this deal with all the action sports filmmakers where they would then sell their titles. So we're coming out with some big like snowboarding movies and surfing movies at the time, and I was basically cold calling shops like mountain bike stores, surf shops, skate shops, trying to sell these DVDs before Christmas. And they were like, oh, we'll give you £1, which is like, I don't know, $1.50 per DVD you sell. And I was just like slamming the phone. And someone was like, yeah, I'll take 100. I'm like, yeah, nice. Just made £100 for like 1 minute. Okay, that's great. Like just smiling and dialing, basically.
Smiling and dialing.
What seemed like a little boiler room at the time. That then sort of turned into advertising sales and just trying to get brands and working with action sports companies to try and get their ads into the magazines. And then I sort of just had a bit of enough kind of living in London and commuting to go surfing down on the west coast of England. It's like 4.5 hour drive to get to the coast to get some decent waves. And I was like, nah, I don't think I want to continue doing this. So my girlfriend at the time, now wife, we decided to go, okay, well, where can we go? Where can we work? And we thought if we go to Australia, it's good salaries, the weather's good, and most importantly for me, I could go surfing. There's great surf. So we took we applied for visas, and we ended up getting citizenship. Well, we ended up getting permanent visas, residency visas, to then go over to Australia. We chose Sydney, and yeah, it kind of that was right. We stayed there for 7 years, and then I was doing a bunch of different corporate jobs within events, not really liking it. But
Yeah.
I remember this one company I worked for. It was in the town where we were living in Manly, just outside Sydney, and like the only reason I did the job was because it was like 300 meters from the beach and from a really good surf rate.
You're like walking into the interview and you see the water. You're like, this is the company.
Well, I walked up the stairs. They had all these surfboards like in the hallway.
These are my people.
I was like, oh my god! Like, and that was like it was event sales and doing like sponsorship sales for like corporate events.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the job.
Yeah.
The job wasn't great, but the people there were all right, and met some good friends, and like one or two of them we would just go surfing every lunchtime. So I was like, I'm going before work, I'm going at lunch, I'm going afterwards.
Yeah.
And
that is something that
before I had kids, but I was just going the whole time. I was just like, whenever I could get in the sea, I'm like, all right.
I love it. That is something that's really caught my eye right now as you were explaining your journey, which is a lot of your decisions seems to be made around environment, right? Like the place where you are, like, can you actually do the stuff that you enjoy, right? Like, sure, like you might enjoy part of your work, but like every type of work, there's parts of the job that, they're not as enjoyable. But are you in the vicinity of other things that you can do that, that
you enjoy?
That you enjoy, that you get excited with, but also the people, right? That community, like, are you around people that maybe share the same hobbies? You guys can go and surf together. And I think that speaks to, I mean, in a way, your development. And, we don't skate for, at all.
I did some years of longboarding with my Sector 9 31-inch in college. I ate it multiple times, but, I survived.
Yeah, we put us on wheels, and we're not that good.
I'm a one-wheeler. I don't know if you've ridden one. The one wheel, the electric skateboard with just one wheel. Have you tried it out? Okay.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun. But, I feel like every time I go to a park here in Jacksonville, and there's a few skate parks around, and it's a community. Like, I don't ever see anybody like just skating by themselves. It's like they always have that community. And I've also met a lot of skateboarders that then they move on into this kind of like creative roles and community roles. I don't know why, but I feel like, the way you guys are in that environment, that community kind of like translates into what you guys are going to do in the future. And I find that super interesting. Well, I mean, I think it overlaps. We play soccer our whole life, and I think I like those environments as well. Like the team, the competitiveness in a sense, kind of like the testing, the try hard as well. Like, I mean, you're busting your butt every single time when you're skating, right? Like, I'm sure like one of the main lessons from there is you get to try again.
I think he likes surfing better. I don't know if
surfing, yeah, surfing, right? I tried surfing for a bit, and I almost broke my back. Like this, like wave almost snapped me in half. It was a lot of fun, so I need to. But I was going on my own too, which didn't. It kind of like stopped me from going after a while. I was like, well, I'm just alone. And after that hit, I actually got scared. I was like, what if something happened to me and there's nobody around either? So I found this super interesting. I'm curious to hear a little bit about that, about community, right? About your community around, like, was that a conscious decision that you took? Have you seeked that into the positions that you've moved towards?
I think I thought about this a bit, kind of going through like different stages of growing up. Like, when you're a kid, for me, it was just like selfishly hanging around friends who had that same passion, or we were doing the same thing, whether it was kind of going out to concerts, going to gigs in London, or skating, or just partying basically, and kind of getting up to no good and being troublemakers. And then kind of getting into college and university, it was sort of similar. And then like surfing was the same. And afterwards, I mean, I had a stint after university where I did a course in Australia before I moved there, which was it's called Sports Management Surfing Studies. And my mum like gave me this newspaper article after I graduated in the UK, And she was like, oh, there's this course in Australia. They're doing this 1-year diploma in sports management, surfing studies. Like, oh, it's a bit of a joke, isn't it? And I'm like, that looks really fun. I'm going to do that. And I ended up applying, and I got in, and I was like, this is life. Sick. And afterwards, I did it, and I was sort of like, after I got back, I just felt like the only job I could get from there was then coaching. So I became like a surfing instructor in the Canary Islands, which is a Spanish island, just off the coast, just basically off the coast of Africa in the middle of the Atlantic. Did a season out there, and then I just had this kind of like wave of guilt, and I'm like, okay, I've got to go and get a proper job. And I just started. I had a bit of a freak out, a bit of a moment, and like now looking back, I'm like, you should just have followed. Like I think all these things, it's just all experiences, isn't it? So I decided to go back. I left. I went into the city in London. I lasted. It was in this room with like 100 other people just slamming phones. It was like proper boiler room style, and I like, this is absolutely horrendous. And I
don't think about the Canary Islands,
what have I done? And it was a bit of a swap, and that was like going back in winter in London, and it was like raining every single day, and like, oh man, like this is horrible. And then ended up then leaving and then interning and getting that job for that media company, and then sort of trying to climb up there. But that whole time it was sort of like, maybe from skating or doing these sports, and like when you guys play football, there's always something like, if you want to get better at anything, you got to practice at it, and the hard stuff is fun, right? And then when you kind of, there's different levels of it, and just sort of pushing that, and now it's almost like everything has come weirdly full circle. If I was going to like tell my younger self that this is what I'd be doing, and combining all these different things and all these different worlds and pasts, like I just wouldn't believe it.
That's so cool. Oli, I relate a ton with your story, because I feel like we've probably been spoiled with our first jobs. I mean, my first like legit job was with a company called Red Bull. And I was like, it was like the same thing. I was like around sports, around events, around these things. It was not a typical thing. Like we were calling, I was in the marketing side. And then after that, you're like, the company left Venezuela at the time, and it left us all heartbroken. And I was like, I don't want to do a regular job anymore, ever. We played football and these things. And obviously, I think those experiences say a lot. And I remember, now I have kids. I don't know if you have kids, but I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I think, trying different things to find exactly, what you're going to do, I think is super exciting, because you can discover new things, right? During that time, I discovered that I like talking to random people and just showing up in their shops and talking these things and going to events and be like in an active environment, right? But like you chasing that environment of the situation, like where do I like to live? Where do I like to do? I'm actually going to base my decision based off of that. And I remember when we were purchasing the studio, one of the conversations I had with my coach was like, is this city a place where you want to stay for a long time? Because now you guys are buying like a brick and mortar business, right? And it's super interesting, because a lot of, business owners or even content creators, right? We make decisions based on like the specific output, but then we ignore everything that comes around it. And then that thing that comes around it takes more of the time and maybe your capacity than the job that you have to do, right? So I think it's super exciting that you brought that topic up, and maybe for you was like something natural, right? Maybe you're like, of course it makes sense that as soon as I see the beach, that's the place I'm gonna go work, right? And then you try the other thing, and it's like, man, this might not be the environment.
I think you got to try it to know. It's almost like a process of elimination, right?
Yeah.
You try and you go, this isn't for me.
What don't you like? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, we tried Australia, we lived there for a while. I loved it, but then there were certain limitations. Like my wife's German. We had our son born, our son who's now 6. When he was born there, we were like, okay, it's really far and pretty expensive if you're going to get 3 people back and forth, to UK to see family. So we were like, or Germany. So we decided to come back, and you kind of, I guess for us, we sort of picked it around location and then like activities and things that we like to do, and just went from there. But sometimes with these, you can get these feelings. If it's a gut feeling, whether that's sort of like life decisions, if you're gonna, like you were saying with the studio, you kind of got pick, and then a lot of times you just take a punt and you take a chance. Okay, like nothing now is permanent. Absolutely. So you can always you can always change it if you don't like it. Like we were asking me before, like if I'm planning on staying in Portugal forever, I was just like, well, I love it here now. Yeah. But you never know. Really. You never know. And it's kind of like you set yourself up for staying. Like our kid's he's in a bilingual school, so he's speaking Portuguese and stuff, and it's cool. And you just try and blend in with the community, and I think that's really important. So then you sort of set up roots in places, but again, things can change. You never know what's around the corner, right?
Absolutely. We're gonna get a little philosophical here, but we were watching Blue Beetle yesterday, right? The new DC movie, the new superhero Blue Beetle. And actually, there was a part in the movie.
The only Hispanic superhero that's not Chapulín. Just saying.
And there was part in the movie where the dad was talking to the main character, his son, and they were talking about purpose, right? Like, what is my purpose? Where am I going? Right? Like, is this your purpose, Dad? And the dad was actually mentioning what you were saying. It's more like a journey. Like, sure, my purpose right now is to have this conversation with you. But it's going to change. We don't know where it's going to go. And I think that is how people need to approach it. I feel like there's some sort of like romanticized idea on purpose, right? That people feel like I need to have this grandiose purpose where I'm going to get and I'm going to stay there the rest of my life, right? And we very well lived that. Like our dream was to play soccer professionally. And guess what?
Football, bro. Say it right.
Football. Sorry. Wow. I'm Americanized.
He's very Americanized.
Football. Come on, Gunners. And
no, not Arsenal. Come on.
We'll talk about that. I was about to ask you, but I was like, I don't want to break the flow of the conversation, but we'll talk about that later. But I think it's important for people to understand that it's like there's not just one main thing. You can just go and try multiple things and see, okay, if I like this, let me give it a shot for a little bit longer. And then when I stop liking it, I just need to make a decision and move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Oli, go ahead.
No, up to you.
I'm very curious, right? Like, obviously, you've had all these amazing experiences. You've lived and experienced different multitude of cultures, and then you started like this festival platform, Ratson, and Rat Season, sorry, and then you have your podcast, right? You publish, you're producing content. How does that play a part in now Director of Cult Indoctrination in Europe for Liquid Death, for example, right? Like a lot of the concept that we talk about here in the show, for example, we use our show to chase opportunities and expand our network, and it's been an amazing experience and tool for us to grow, not only as people, but also for our business, right? So a lot of people that follow either their business owners and they're chasing those opportunities. Because obviously you have an entrepreneurial, side to you. And then with what you guys are doing, launching in multiple markets, you said that you cannot tell us where you guys are going, but for the listeners in the US, go to every single grocery store and get all the waters that you want, especially hurricane season, guys, stock up. But I'm curious, like how did that come to fruition?
Yeah, so Rad Season is an events and festivals platform. During the pandemic and when COVID started, we had just before we had maybe 1,000 events on the website. So on radseason.com, there was, everything from crazy music festivals in the US through to, it was from Burning Man through to, Oktoberfest in Germany, action sports events, surfing, film festivals, all this kind of basically fun stuff that it was if I checked out a video of it and saw a trailer and be like, oh, that looks sick, I'd like to go to that, I'd be like,
it goes to the side, editorial decision.
So it was kind of picking all these categories and all these things that I wanted to either eventually go to or check out or watch.
Awesome.
And that was kind of almost the barometer of like what I thought was like, if I thought this was fun, should I add it? Then the world got flipped upside down, and everything stopped, all the events stopped. So I jumped into, I had a bit of a freak out for like 4 weeks. I got my mountain bike out of my garage. I hadn't used it for 2 years. Surfing was banned in Portugal because they didn't want people kind of like basically being too close in car parks. So so they didn't want people like congregating outside like before they get in or when they get out of the surf. It's just completely fair. So just sort of, I got out in the woods and just tried to clear my head and just thought, what was I going to do? What was going to be the next step? And like every single person, the podcasting idea popped into my head, and I was like, well, at least I can get the conversations going. In the beginning, I thought, okay, I'm just going to jump in the deep end. I'm not a natural speaker. I was never like good at public speaking at school or anything like that. And I was just like, this is really, really uncomfortable for me. I'm dyslexic. I stutter. What am I doing? Like,
just another day.
I've got no business doing this. But then I was just like, you know what? Like, I did sales for so many years before, and it's kind of, picking up a phone or having like a conversation with somebody you don't really know. It's pretty fun as well, because then you can kind of dig in, you can ask questions, and you just find out. You can just find information out, and it's just interesting. Like, and I'm just naturally curious. Yeah. So I was like, okay, like let's do it. Let's go live. So I started streaming them live every single week, and then would like do it religiously. And it was like, this was the time when everyone was at home. And I was doing it with like event organizers, and their businesses is just shut down, or like people that own travel companies. And then it was getting pretty depressing, pretty dark. But it was like, now looking back, it's just I'm happy that it's like we've got it recorded, and it's kind of kept those conversations going. And then it sort of switched into something. I was like, I'm really interested in these different action sports like surfing, skating, snowboarding.
Yeah.
And the culture behind it, and why people started their businesses, like why they kind of decided to, I don't know, like start a skateboard company, for example, in the 70s or whatever it may be. And basically it's not that old. So you can kind of go back and track these people. And then it was sort of like one guest I'd get on would lead to another one. And it was sort of like opening all these different doors. And I'm like, this is sick. This is really fun.
Yeah.
And right at the beginning of Liquid Death, I saw this video on Facebook where someone was getting waterboarded, and it was like proper this woman was like standing over. She was just like pouring this white can, can see the logo or anything on somebody, and like, what is that? And they're like, water's dangerous, like mountains are dangerous, and there's like someone snowboarding, like dropping in, and then there's like someone like going down a 50-foot wave. And that video basically goes viral on Facebook.
Yeah. I remember watching that video and being like, what the heck? Yeah. It was good.
Yeah, it was crazy. And now sort of looking back, there wasn't even a product. So that was kind of that then launched Liquid Death. That was the first campaign or first marketing content or piece of content that they did. And I got in contact with a guy that I knew in the action sports industry called Styx, Steve Nielsen. And he was actually at Red Bull. So he was the first sports marketing lifestyle manager at Red Bull for 10 years. And then he went over to Paps, and then Liquid Death, and he was like employee, I think number 6 at Liquid Death. And we just got in, like we had like friends in common and stuff within the action sports world, and reached out to him. He came on the podcast really early on, and then we just kept in contact for the last couple of years. And I was just like always like saying, it was just getting bigger and bigger in America. I'm like, when is this coming over here?
Like, I'm ready, coach. Put me in.
Basically. And it was like, like the platform then, like events came back, and I had like freelancers and people that were helping me out on the website, and the platform was just running. The podcast I was kind of doing weekly, and we just started talking, and he's like, what do you reckon? Like, do do you know anyone that would potentially be interested in doing something like I'm doing with lifestyle marketing for Liquid Death over in Europe? And then we were just saying like, yeah, like I know a couple of people. I've got some ideas as well, you know. Like, so just put some ideas together, sent over a deck to him, and we just carried on that conversation. And I came on board just before the launch in the UK. So the launch in the UK was in London, and that was at the end of April this year.
Wow. That's by the way, for those listening, this is like what we talk about every single day of like chasing your opportunities through publishing, right? In a sense, and you invested in a relationship. You guys have points in common, like, right? It was not a thing that happened. So, but I think is, especially for the people that listen to our show, your example, and I did not know this, which is amazing. Like I know that you published, right? But it was super exciting to see this, right? That you came into alignment with a brand and a company and a person that, you now are doing amazing things together.
Yeah. And I said to myself, like, when I started my own business, I'm like, I don't really want to work for another company. And then I was just like,
but maybe
this company's different, man.
You see a waterboarder video and you're like, that's the company.
Yeah, I was just like, it was basically just combining. It's combining all of my interests into one.
Yeah,
like the music, the art, action sports, comedy. It basically just it was like, for me, it just clicked. I was like, this is a fit, and I got it like the moment I saw that video, before all the hype, before it was kind of in Walmart, in 7-Eleven, and all that stuff, like right at the beginning. And obviously the potential trajectory of the brand, and sort of now kind of what we're doing, like moving forwards, and so what's been happening in the last 6 months has just been, it's just been nuts.
I bet it's moving like really quick. And for those that don't know, like Liquid Death, right there, you guys are a very bold brand, bold messaging, right? Like you guys you have your values that are very clear. Yeah. You guys clearly define that line of like who your customer is and what the message. And I think obviously that with the marketing strategy and what we talk about in marketing, that's super important. We talk a lot about being polarizing, right? And that launch video, I hope we can find it and put it on the episode. But then talk us through a little bit of like why that's the decision behind the brand, right, in a sense, and how has that been beneficial? A lot of people that listen to the show, right, like part of the community, sometimes they're scared to go towards like one side really heavy, right, like either with their message or with their branding or what like they stand for. Being polarizing, right? So
I think it kind of goes back to Mike Cesario, who's the founder and co-founder and CEO of Liquid Death. He came from the, I guess, like ad creative world, working for companies like Netflix and it was always like, to him, it was kind of evident that it's like, why do all the unhealthy brands, not going to name any names, but like the junk food brands and drinks, get to have all the fun in their marketing? And it's like, no one wants to be sold to. Everyone hates these kind of general commercials. So he was like, let's try and flip this on its head. And what's the most healthiest thing in the world for you that you need to live? Water. And then the name is, well, what's the most ridiculous thing that we could potentially call this? And there's method in the madness with Liquid Death. I mean, absolutely. The concept is murder your thirst on that sort of like that fun kind of playful, like the comedy and the humor that's behind the brand. But then also there's a serious message with death to plastic as well. So the cans are aluminium, they're 100% recyclable, and 10% of the profit over in the States is it's going back to charitable causes, which are then used to reduce plastic pollution in the world's oceans. So we're putting our money where our mouth is as well. It's like it's trying to reduce single-use plastic. Yeah,
absolutely. What do you say to people that might see the branding like without this background, right? And they're like, reject the product, you know, in a sense. Are you guys okay with that? Do you guys try to convince them? You're like, I don't care.
100% okay with that. I mean, there's a lot of hate, and I don't know if you've seen, like, they've put together campaigns where they've basically taken like hate comments on the internet and turned them into full-blown albums called Greatest Hates.
Yeah, I've listened to it.
Volume 3.
They're so good.
They're awesome. Definitely check them out on Spotify. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of people in marketing, obviously there's a line, but a lot of people are afraid, and especially at the moment, whether you like if you are trying to have that strategy of pleasing everybody, you can't please everybody, and the people, like, they get it or they don't, you know. It's kind of like, I'm speaking to my mom and she's just like, oh, it's really nice, it tastes great, but they should do something about the name.
Yeah.
I was like, why do they call it death? I'm like,
Here we go again.
I've explained it to her, but so it's kind of like, you know, it's not, it's on purpose. It's that not everyone is going to go, you know, like, like this is the best thing in the world. Like but the people that do get it, then that brand then becomes sort of like, they become fans, and that fandom then, in that bond that they feel with it, it just becomes stronger and stronger. So the people, like you were saying, like, it looks like a beer. Well, that's like, you know, not an accident either, right? So you can kind of look in the aisle and it's like skinny plastic bottles, like one after another, and it's just like, there's this random can that sort of looks like a beer. What's going on? Why is it in the water section? Has someone made a mistake? So it creates that curiosity and the affinity with people. So say, like, for example, people that are sober, or if you don't want another like alcoholic drink, you can have a Liquid Death, you can be in the club or in the bars, and you don't feel like you
like an outsider,
out of place. If you were going to feel like, oh, like, if I'm standing there with a plastic bottle of water, it's obviously water. If I'm standing there with, like, you know,
well, I don't know.
Over it.
I don't know about you, but I've been in that position, right? Like, we're probably, you know, we had a game the next day or whatever growing up in Venezuela, right? People start drinking at like 15, 16, right? You're in a party and everybody's drinking. You're like with a water bottle. You're like, you know, I understand that, right? Like, and I love it. By the way, I'm a fan.
It's really cool.
I'm a fan of the messaging, of everything, of the branding.
I think there's so many good marketing lessons just by looking at you guys and what you guys have done, right? Like, first, you guys have a clear mission, right? And something that people can get behind as well. It's not just, you know, flashy marketing and capturing people's attention, but once people decide to dive in and understand what you guys are, then you have, you know, we donate 10%, right? Like, you have the recyclable, and you're like, wow, like, why haven't other companies done that, right? Like, I mean, water is definitely not a new industry, you know, and when you think about it, you're like, why aren't other companies doing this? And you guys took a different approach, right? The whole branding, the name, right? Liquid Death, it does call the attention. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I thought it was a beer. You put it in a tall boy can, right? It's all made to capture people's attention. And then when people dive in, you guys have a clear and strong message that people are either going to align with or they're not going to align with it. And honestly, I personally don't understand why the hate comments, because it's just water. You know, like why are people hating? Like, this is so random.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's got something to say, right? Whether it's good or bad, and it's kind of like,
true.
You just got to let them get on with it.
True.
But definitely, like, flipping that on its head and kind of almost using it to our advantage. Like putting those out, like putting the songs together, or like hearing them when they come out. You know, it's pretty funny, like how they can make that, and the artists that they're getting in, like, that they've had on Greatest Hates, is legit artists. You know, it's like, for example, like it's proper, like, rock stars again in the studio, or there's like people from Tony Hawk, you know, in the skateboarding world, is kind of like singing some lyrics as part of it, and so they're getting some big names that are basically friends of people within the company. So all the campaigns, everything that we've done is sort of it's been through people that we know, or friends of friends that are then, like, they've sort of seen it and they go, like, this is pretty fun, and it's also, you know, there's a good message behind what Liquid Death are trying to do. and they back it, and they're like, okay, like how can we kind of, especially kind of going from certain categories and segments where, you know, like energy drinks, for example, which they're not the best for you.
Yeah.
And, you know, or certain foods, and then they're getting pushed on kids. It's basically taking that and going, okay, well, you know, like if they're going to be drinking more water, if they're hydrating, then it's definitely going to have benefits. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the company has grown massively. I think it started in 2017, and for what I looked, it's now valued at like 700 million. That is
or more.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's good. So I'm curious, what does cult indoctrination means, right? Like what are I'm curious on what
like,
are
welcome to the cult. Do you show up, you know, with like this bathrobe and whatever, and you're like, welcome to the cult, right?
Yeah, like what are your responsibilities?
All day long wearing a cape.
Wearing a cape, yeah, and a hoodie in there. I'm curious, right? Like, because, you know, and for a little bit of context, right, from the world that we come in with the podcasting, right, and more on the coaching industry, community is a huge talk, right? People want to build communities, and they want people in there that are engaging, and not only, you know, not only making part of the communities, but also make them evangelists, right? People that are going to go out there and promote your brand for you and just talk so good about your brand. They live it, right? And again, we actually haven't mentioned the names of some companies. Well, my brother did, but, you know, Red Bull, for example, they do a great job at their marketing, right? And they have evangelists and people that go out there and they're like, oh, Red Bull is the greatest thing. And we all know, yeah, sure, it's not the healthiest thing, right? But again, their marketing is pretty epic too.
To make a lot of money.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, how do you see that? And as the master indoctrinator, you know, what are some of the things that you have to do to create that?
Well, I can't take full credit for the name, so that's kind of a bit of a... So Styx, who manages, he's the VP of Cult Indoctrination under Good Death, and based over in the US. So he oversees the team, and
nice.
That was basically Mike Cesario. He came up with that name when they were kind of talking about titles early, and he goes, well, you know, why don't you just be like, you know, Cult Indoctrination, like head of Cult Indoctrination. And I was like, oh, I like that. It's good.
I can own it.
And then just sort of spin it and do it for the European version.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I head up lifestyle marketing for Liquid Death for the UK and for Europe, or for EMEA. And what that kind of breaks down in is kind of getting the can or like getting brand exposure and awareness and cans in hands to individuals, events and venues. And we're getting into places like through our network and through the different communities that we've been involved with. Is basically kind of how it's kind of come into fruition. So the cult aspect of it is sort of trying to, like, as you would probably know from Red Bull days, like trying to break into certain action sports. You can't just go, oh, hey, skateboarding, we're here now. Hello. Yeah. Like, drink my drink, please.
Yeah.
Like,
well, let me waterboard you.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, you know, there's certain things where it's really delicate, and people are very protective, either of their sports or their scenes and their communities, and rightly so. So the people that we have like on our team, I mean, they're like legit professional athletes, rock stars, and their friends and their network is ginormous within those particular industries. So it's almost like them going, oh, like, check this out. Do you think this is something? And they're like, yeah, this would be cool. I could definitely take this to like this event or project that I'm working on. And it's kind of got in that way.
That's so cool. Yeah. I have a crazy story. When I was like working with Red Bull, we had to do these routes, right? And I was like on premise, off premise, and same thing, like cans in hands. That was like the thing. And this is back in like 2019 maybe. And one of the routes I had to jump with one of the trucks, and we in our city, there's one of the biggest favelas in South America, if not the biggest, called Petare, El Barrio Petare, right?
Is this in Caracas? Is that where you're from?
Yeah. Okay. This is in Caracas. Have you been?
I haven't, no, but yeah, I've got a good friend, one of my best mates over here. He's from Caracas.
So if you tell him, hey, do you know Petare? He's gonna know. And there's like this entrance, there's like these arches that mark the entrance to the barrio, right? And it was the first time I'm with the truck, and the guy is driving into the barrio, right? And he's like, we have to make the delivery into one of the stores that are inside. And as we're driving in, there's like these guys like with like legit like long weapons just standing at the entrance of the barrio, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. They love this drink, whatever." And we're like, "Are you sure? Like this is crazy." And he's like, "Yeah. They hate Pepsi, so they won't let Pepsi truck in, but you know they love Red Bull, so they let us in, right?" And it's like that level of fans of the brand and the drink that they were allowing the truck to go in and do that, and that to me would cause such a big impression, because like the Pepsi truck would try to get in and they wouldn't let him. They would just go on the side and wouldn't make the delivery, right? So I go back to that experience. I'm like, wow, what is the level of messaging and what is the level of like fandom and like the resonance with like their customer that has to be so strong for people like this, right? And I feel like, you know, you guys are doing a really good job with that, and Liquid Death around the world in a sense, right? Like since the very beginning, you know, to me, I don't think I've ever considered personally like drinking water you know, not thinking it was like lame drinking water, but it's like, you know, I'm going to go to like that place. I'm actually going to buy a water instead of like a different drink. And you know, it speaks to, can we be healthier, right? Can we do this? And it's like all these elements that maybe the water companies before weren't considering, instead of just selling water in a plastic bottle, right?
Yeah, I think they were selling water more as a need, other companies, right? Like they were just like, oh, people need water, they will buy water, like as long as there's like some sort of supply.
They were just, I guess, looking at it from like, these are the health benefits, and you know, this is like, it's got these like less electrolytes or more electrolytes, whatever it may be, in comparison to this one. And they're just like, you know, almost forget that and kind of look at what it like. What is the brand? What does it stand for? Why should someone care? Why should people resonate with it?
Yeah.
And I think it was almost that approach, and then looking at like the humor and the comedy element of the company, of the brand, and going like Mike basically, when he set out, whenever they did a campaign at the beginning or now, it's just like there was two things. It's like, is this going to make my friends laugh, and is it going to break the internet today? It was basically those two things, right? So they were going to like, if an idea got presented and it wasn't that funny, you'd be like, meh, yeah, it's okay. It wouldn't be a go, right? But if everyone's kind of like, if it just clicks and you get it, and then sort of looking at these, there's crossover. So sort of talking about like the cult or, you know, the community stuff, it kind of, people that maybe go to a certain gig venue, like they would skate, or they go to a particular barber, or they're, you know, going to this tattoo shop or a comedy club. It kind of, all the cities all over the world, there's these little pockets and scenes which sort of fit with, you know, like what you would sort of assume, especially at the beginning, what you would assume if you're seeing in Europe. But now it's kind of gone to this point where, you know, it's water at the end of the day, and we don't take ourselves too seriously, although there is that sustainability, there is a serious message behind it. But it is water. It doesn't matter where you're from or who you are, you can drink it. And if you think like, whether you're playing like paddle or you're going to the gym, you don't have to be like a massive tattooed dude that listens to heavy metal. It's like, it's not about that. It's about like basically being a part of some of these scenes, and people feeling that, you know, okay, these guys, like if they think it's funny and they get it and they resonate and they connect with the brand.
Do you guys sell like kegs for parties? That'd be hilarious.
Liquid Death kegs.
Yeah, Liquid Death, like water kegs.
Putting people upside down.
Yes, that'd be so funny. That'd be amazing.
For your next launch in the party, just do like massive Liquid Death kegs, you know, wrap them up with.
That'd be hilarious.
What?
One second. I want to kind of like break down, because there's so many good lessons, man, that I'm seeing that people can apply to their business, right? And first, you talk about branding, like none of these waters, like literally as you were talking, I was like, all right, let me try to recall some of the water brands out there, and I think the only one that like easily came to mind was like,
you're gonna say competitors over here, bro.
I mean,
no, we're liquid death people now.
I know, but still, I was like,
You can say that, don't worry.
yeah, exactly. You see, he's so confident in his brand that he's not worried about it.
Let's go.
So, the only one that came to mind was like Fiji water. And honestly, I'm like, why did that one came to mind? And I was like, honestly, I have no idea. I think it's because I heard people say that it's kind of like a little bit pricier than other waters, but it doesn't have like a differentiator, right? Like this element that is make me gonna go and like buy that water. I never buy that water either, And I found this super curious because now again, you guys are so strong on your message, right? What you guys stand for, like brand is so important, right? For building, I guess goodwill or just getting people to make a decision on which product they want to buy. Now, the other thing that I found super, super interesting, right, that you mentioned is, I mean, the fact that you guys have these meetings, you're like, all right, our filter is, our friends gonna find it funny, Like the decision making is pretty simple, right? You guys have your values and what you're looking for. And if the message fits that, it's like, all right, let's give it a try, right? Again, let's grab hate comments and turn them into awesome, epic playlists on Spotify. Wow, that is creative, right? Let's do that. No other brand is doing that. Let's give it a try.
We've got an in-house creative team and designers. Everything that they do it's all built within the company, and I feel that with these people, like they're pretty smart. It's not just like, of course. There's some really, really clever people behind like the messaging and the campaigns and the comedy and everything that goes into all the marketing content that comes out. So like from that, it's sort of them like testing out these ideas, putting these like sketchboards together and stuff. But because it doesn't have to go through, say if it was a large, massive corporate going through all these different hoops, and then it just gets shut down at different points. And you're like, oh, you can't say that, you can't do this. Yeah. They can move fairly quickly on things. Obviously, it's all done tactically as well.
Of course.
But yeah, it's kind of knowing, like, then the more they do it, the more kind of like sort of the ethos and the branding and the messaging of Liquid Death, it then just comes across and like, okay, that's like, now you can look at a bit of content without even seeing the can and going, all right, that's
I think the founder's background was actually kind of like that one, right? He used to work on creative teams, but on the corporate side of things.
Branding and brand strategy and creative. So he's coming from that world of having all that experience and then going, okay, like now this is something
we're gonna do things differently.
Yeah.
You said something of the importance of an in-house team. I think like you guys are that example, right? And with obviously at the level that we have a fractional content team we have an internal team for us for Content is Profit, and a lot of the message is like, hey, you as a company, you need to start bringing in that creative team on for your own content. Like and just this morning I was looking through like those very cold DMs, like the one I sent you from a bunch of like clips editors, right? And we're like, we're looking to expand the team. What happens? And I've seen some examples. And I'm like, man, like all these clips, they all look the same. And like how do you make a mark right now, like in the noisy marketing world that we live in, right? And I encourage people to start considering into like can I actually get those resources internally in my team, because guess what? Those are all going to be embedded with your values. Those are going to be embedded with your mission, with your visuals, with your brand, and you can grow from there. And that alone is going to make it very, very different to the outside world and make it your own. And what you mentioned, speed, the speed of what you guys execute is so important in today's day and age. And I think it's a massive asset.
And I think like how everything is changing and evolves so quickly, it's not like we can go, okay, well, we're planning to do a campaign and it's like 8 months down the line, because it may not be funny in 8 months. So it's like it's kind of coming up with these concepts now and going, okay, this is something that could be happening in pop culture, or it's in that moment, and then taking it, okay, we should run with this idea. And then as it's sort of on my end, is kind of getting on the lifestyle marketing side, it's sort of then working, for example, for music. There's no there's no sort of genre. We just do this genre. We just do metal, or we just do hardcore, punk, or whatever EDM, whatever it may be. It's just like, is this a fun scene? Do we want to be a part of it?
Yeah.
Are we connected in there? And it's that way, and it's going to be different for every country and every city, and it's just kind of knowing those nuances or knowing people that do, and that's kind of how you build that kind of connection with that people have then with the brand.
Yeah, so I think something important too, that kind of like an element of what you're doing is also in the podcasting world, which is pretty big, is, you know, you're attaching your brand to people that already have some sort of influence, right? And obviously this influence in a way and their values align with those of your company. So by you attaching your product to them, now the new audience that you guys are tapping to, they're immediately relating your product with that person, right? And they're saying, oh, if, you know, X, Y, and Z drinks Liquid Death, I want to try it, right? I want to give it a try. And that is huge, right? Like that borrowed authority in a way is massive. And that has been actually a very key factor on our podcast, on Content is Profit. And it's one of the things that we tell people, hey, this is a good reason for you to have a show, a podcast, is because when you bring people on, you're borrowing their authority as well, right? If somebody looks at you online and then they see you, you're on a clip with Oli, they're like, damn, these guys are rad, right? Like, these guys must know how to surf. And we're like, oh, no, we don't, right? But they might assume it, right? But I think it's so important, that part, right? To break that down and help people understand that it's like, okay, how can you create something, right? Whether you have a physical product or you have a service and you're trying to build your brand, how can you attach yourself to people that have bigger authority, right? Because that way your authority or your brand's authority increases as well. So there's different type of authorities, right? You earn it, right? With your work, with your proof, and then you can also borrow it from people, right? But at the end of the day, you also have to back it up, because all these people can be promoting Liquid Death, and then when people come and grab a can and try it, if it's not a good product, they're gonna be like, you know, I'm gonna stop doing it. But let me tell you, I'm a harsh critic of water. I love water. I am not somebody that think all water stays the same. No, don't come at me with that. This is delicious water, man. This is really good. I was fairly surprised the first time I tried it. I was like,
and when it's cold, it is better, by the way.
This is very nice. So I just wanted to break that down for people so they can understand and also have maybe an idea of like how can they raise the authority levels on their brand.
Yeah, I think, and I know I did this for podcasting when I launched the platform in previous jobs. Everything is the comparison and comparing yourself, and it's cool to get ideas from different, say, if you're producing content, but getting bogged down in like what competitors are doing is just a spiral that is in the wrong way. It's not good. So you kind of got to go and look at it and go like block it out, or just go, look, I don't care. We're going to do it for us or for myself, for the company, for the brands, and this is the reason why, and sort of have that intent. And it's almost something that you can't even really explain it. It's just sort of like, if you're going to be true to yourself, this is what we're going to do. I don't care what anyone else is doing. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to charge it and we're going to make it happen.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
We need a campaign like that.
Hey, I told you, I already have the logo, Content is Profit, like what's it called? The Content is Profit mascot. I got it. I sent it to you.
That's not a campaign. We need like a fun, you know, awesome campaign that people are going to say like, dang, these guys are like the Liquid Death of podcasting.
We should try that. I can waterboard you.
That'll be interesting.
On the show, one episode.
In the middle, he's like, here you go. That'll be hilarious.
Have a disclaimer at the bottom and stuff.
Yeah. Like, we're not responsible for anything that happens. You know, kind of like an MTV show. But dude, Oli, what a fun conversation, man. Like, this was awesome. I know that you say you have some time, but I'm gonna respect. You know, you probably need the time with your family out there.
I do have one last question. I'm curious about.
Wait, I had the last question.
Well, you can have the last question. Oli, like, you know, you had your podcast, you had these 20 years of experience, and I'm curious on what was the value of having a network already when coming into Liquid Death, right? Because was that a huge asset? Were the people that, were trying to get you on board, like, did they care about that? Because I'm sure, like, somebody can come in and, smile and dial, like we were talking before.
Yeah.
But, that, people's network it's an asset. Like, who do you know at the end of the day?
For this job, I mean, it's pretty much, it's not everything, but having those connections, having integrity, getting back to people quickly. Someone told me really early on when I was younger, they're just like, don't ever burn a bridge. Like, you never, ever, ever know what will happen. No matter, like, if you feel that you're getting treated badly, just try and kind of raise above it and, like, don't fall out with people. And that was something that, I just took on board. And having, like, now, like, kind of like looking at what I'm doing, it's sort of, it's having conversations. You may not have spoken to people for a while. It could be years. It could be, it could be a long time. And you'd be like, yeah, I'm doing this thing. What do you reckon? Like, let's meet up. Or just, jumping calls with people, meeting people. I haven't lived in the UK for a long time. I'm going back there. Like, it's almost been like 10 years since I've been permanently living in London.
Wow.
And now I'm back there like every second or third week at the moment. And yeah, it's sort of having that network for anything that you almost wanted to do. Yeah. And now that it kind of, if it goes around, people are really, really passionate about certain sports or hobbies, and you have that kind of, like, there's that similarity and that connection, whether you're into the same music and same bands or whatever it may be. Yeah. And it's just, it could be something, where you've got kids that are the same age or in the same school. It's these kind of like little things. And yeah, I think the connections and the network is invaluable, particularly for entrepreneurship. And again, you just don't know, like, where things lead and what happens, right? Like with you guys are Content as Profit, and you kind of like, it could be something that you get someone on the show and then weird situations or opportunities arise that you may not even think about it, and it's just sort of like, oh, like, remember when someone said this? And then so anyone that's listening, I'd sort of take that away, that some things that you're doing, they may not appear that it's not paying off at that very instant that you're like, okay, I'm not getting paid for doing this speaking engagement or this project as much as I want to be, but you never know kind of like where that will lead. Absolutely. And it's always kind of having that that eye open and the ear out, and kind of like, like subconsciously thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to do it. I'll be true to myself, and just kind of just keep the door open and never burn any bridges. Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's good to know that we're never going to burn this bridge.
We're going to assume that we have a home in Portugal, just saying. And you guys, anytime you guys come to Florida, you have a home here. But I mean, what you just mentioned, the opportunity of this studio came because of that. It was somebody that we met through the podcast. We had a couple offices down, and he moved. Awesome. And he was like, guys, do you want to buy it? And we're like, sure. And it was something that was not planned, right? We had it was like right timing, right opportunity, right moment, right connection, right person. And I think like that's the real power of collaboration through whatever, right? The relationships, like for us is a podcast, right? But for you, it could be a Instagram live, it could be a StreamYard stream, it could be whatever, right? So Oli, I mean, we're very grateful that you came on. My question was gonna be like, what are some fun campaigns that you've done like this year, or maybe you have in the books? I know that you said like some of them are super secret, but maybe we can inspire some people and with some cool ideas of what you guys are doing.
So yeah, there's been there's been some wild ones. One recently was a hate comment of I'd rather drink sweat off a fat man's back than drink this. Oh, wow. So they basically made that happen, and they did a taste test.
Like a taste test. Oh no.
It's wild. You should definitely put the link on
Yes.
For that one for people to check out.
Wow.
I don't want to say anymore. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
We
Play the clip.
we need to play those clips in here. Wow, what a, I feel like your creative team are great listeners too, and props to them because I feel again most people wouldn't see an opportunity in things like this, and you guys have those opportunity glasses on.
Yeah, man.
I mean, most people would they delete the comment.
Yeah.
I know. I've been through that, and they would just you get one bad comment, and it would just wreck me. And I'm like, I'm just taking this too personally. You're just getting trolled. You'd be like, so if it was a comment on a YouTube video or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, they flipped it and really leaned into it and go, okay, this is great. It's
Sure.
just these guys worship Satan, and this is like devil worship water or whatever it may be, right? Or fire your marketing guy. So you can definitely have some fun.
Yes, absolutely. We
love it.
Guys, you have permission to have some fun for those that are listening and watching. Obviously, Oli, thank you so much, man. This was such a great conversation. At least for us, I hope it was for you as well. And for those listening, there's many lessons. Sweet. I think my end. I think that's it. Fonzie, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yes, I do. Oli, earlier in the conversation when I said, "Come on, you Gunners, best team in the world." You were like, nah. So I'm assuming you like football. What team do you like?
So I don't support a particular team. But growing up as a kid, Liverpool was all the rage for my age. So that was kind of when I was younger. It was kind of then it would turn into Manchester United. So it just depended on whoever was kind of winning the league at that time.
Yeah.
Clearly, Arsenal was never winning the league. So whatever.
Not really.
Hey, we're back on top right now, back where Arsenal belongs in the Champions League. So, I'll send you an Arsenal jersey. We'll convert you.
Yeah, dude. Is there anything that you want to add before we head out?
Yeah, I was going to ask what's the the plans for you guys? So for Content is Profit, where do you see?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. And thank you. Well, we have a concept called table face. I'm going to be table faced. We're hoping that we can get sponsored by Liquid Death and carry the waters in the studio. We have 40 shows that run out of here, man. They all need water. Just saying.
They all need water.
So apart from that, we, we just purchased the studio, right? So we rent out the space for local podcasters.
Yeah.
We're looking at how do we expand the operation in Jacksonville with a brand of studio podcast suites in a sense. So there's a couple ideas. We're very early into it. We're 4 months in. For the show, Content is Profit. Just continue to have fun conversations, man. I think this is episode 442, and we just meet amazing people every single week. We have 3 interviews. We're part of a network called Hotspot Podcast Network. So being on stage and hopefully exciting people and motivating people to have things like this, right? These conversations, these shows that open doors and opportunities, right?
Yeah, I think I first learned the value of a strong network because of the podcast. People have said it before, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself. And Content is Profit has been an incredible tool to build our network. Yeah. It's a tool of self-improvement because you're constantly listening to people that have done incredible things. And you're like, wow. It really pushes us to get better. So personally, for me, it's let's keep developing those relationships. We do have plans of other shows that we want to launch so we can talk a little bit on more broader topics because, again, Content is Profit is very, entrepreneurship, marketing, mindset. But we would like to explore some other topics. So we have a show in the plans that is called either... What name do you like better? Two Brothers or Brother? What do you like better?
Two brothers.
Two brothers? Ooh, interesting. All right, cool.
The two Bruskies.
The two.
Well, we'll do
What's it going to be about? Will it be football or are you just
whatever? So about whatever, and it will be kind of have you heard of the Diary of a CEO?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he talks about, his is a little bit more of personal development-ish, but I think I would like for us to talk about topics, right? So let's say there's a huge thing going in the soccer world, right? And we're like, let's make a season about that, right? In football. But what if it's we want to explore the most creative minds. Let's do a season of bringing literally, the chief creative officers of, X companies, and we do like a season just on that, and then we can talk about any topic. So that would be more two brothers.
Fonzie's superpower is being curious and just browse the internet. So he just wants to,
I just want to do research on people and talk about it.
He wants to murder his curiosity thirst. You saw what I did there? Okay, good.
That was good. Oh, that's good.
But yeah, man, and obviously you are more than welcome to come and for us, publishing changed everything. For us, publishing got us out of a funk when we were trying to start our business. It allowed us to meet incredible people, and
we'll bring you to Two Brother, and we'll talk about Rat Season, and we'll talk a lot about your experience. I feel like you must have some crazy experiences with those shows and people that you meet through there.
It's been fun, yeah.
We need to do like a YouTube video of going with Oli and in Europe and backpacking and going
Rat Season.
Rat Season.
That's cool, yeah.
We're coming up with all the puns today, but to Oli again, thank you so much. I think we could do a 2-hour show. Part 2 coming in a few months. It's okay. I'm just gonna put it in the books. Fonzie, you good?
Or I'm good, man. Yeah? Thank you so much, Oli. We really appreciate you. It has been amazing.
With that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Contents Profit Podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at BizBrosCo.
That is Ryan and Oli here. Help you murder your thirst and help you move one step closer towards your goal. Please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.